Hey, amazing viewers, I love connecting with you all around the world. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share will leave you inspired and ready to take control of your own life. In today's story, you'll hear about an incredible twist that no one saw coming. Also, if this is your first time here, press the subscribe button and join our incredible journey. It was a crisp autumn morning, and even Parker was running behind schedule. His old sedan rumbled along the uneven backroads of their small town, while in the back seat, his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, hummed a melody, lost in her own little world. Her frizzy brown hair bounced with every giggle as her backpack, much too large for her small frame, rested beside her. She cheerfully munched on a peanut butter sandwich, slightly squashed from the chaos of their morning routine. It had been a rush, but she was happy, and that was enough for Evan. As he stole a quick glance at the rearview mirror, his heart swelled with pride. She was the brightest spot in his life, his little beacon of hope. "You ready for your big math test today, kiddo?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light, despite the stress that weighed him down. "Yep. Mrs. Cruz says I'm really good at fractions," Emma replied, her voice full of confidence. Evan smiled. "Well, I can barely figure out the bills, so you're already ahead of me." Despite his light-hearted tone, the reality of Evan's life was far from easy. Between part-time shifts at the diner and taking on whatever odd jobs he could find, money was always tight. The radiator in their small apartment needed fixing. Emma's sneakers had holes. And the car, well, the car was barely hanging on by a thread. It had given him more than one scare on the road, and today was no exception. As they neared the main highway, Evan's eyes flicked to the side of the road where a sleek, black sedan sat with its hazard lights blinking steadily. A woman stood nearby, pacing back and forth, her phone pressed to her ear in frustration. Something about her stiff posture and uncertainty made Evan instinctively slow down. "Daddy, what's wrong with her car?" Emma asked, her face pressed against the glass. "Flat tire, looks like," Evan murmured, his voice tinged with hesitation. He glanced at the clock. If he stopped to help, he'd be late for his shift. But the thought of leaving someone stranded, especially a woman alone on the side of the road, didn't sit right with him. He pulled the car over to the shoulder, the gravel crunching beneath the tires. "Stay here for a bit, okay, Em? I'll be right back." Emma nodded, watching intently as her dad grabbed an old rusted toolbox from the trunk of their car. He stepped out into the cool morning air and approached the stranded woman. "Hi there," Evan called out, his voice warm but laced with concern as he neared her. "Need some help?" The woman looked up, startled. She was impeccably dressed in a tailored navy coat and polished leather boots, the soles slightly dusted with gravel. Her phone was still clenched tightly in one hand, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and relief. "Oh yes, please. I've been trying to reach roadside assistance, but they're backed up for hours," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. Evan offered a reassuring smile. "Well, you're in luck. I'm not roadside assistance, but I know my way around a flat tire." The woman's expression softened, her shoulders relaxing. "Thank you so much," she said, letting out a sigh of relief. "I was on my way to a meeting, and I don't even know where to start with this." "Evan," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "And don't worry, this isn't my first roadside rescue." "Claire," she replied, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you, Evan." Evan knelt beside her car, inspecting the tire. "Looks like it's pretty deflated," he muttered, reaching for the tire iron. "Do you have a spare?" Claire gestured vaguely toward the trunk. "I think so, but I wouldn't even know how to get it out." "No problem," Evan said, his voice light as he made his way to the back of the car. He opened the trunk to find a neatly packed spare tire and an assortment of tools that looked untouched, as if they had never been used. As Evan started sorting through the tools, Emma climbed out of their car, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Emma, what are you doing out here?" Evan called, amused, but still a bit worried. "Stay in the car, sweetheart. I want to help," Emma declared, trotting over to stand beside Claire, her small face filled with determination. "Hi, I'm Emma. My dad's really good at fixing stuff," she said proudly, puffing out her chest. Claire smiled down at her, charmed. "Hi, Emma. You've got a very kind dad." Even chuckled as he began loosening the stubborn lug nuts on the tire. "You hear that, kiddo? Kind. Remember that next time I ask you to clean your room." Emma giggled, and Evan's heart warmed at the sound of her laughter. But as he continued working, the tire proved more difficult to change than he had anticipated. The lug nuts were stubbornly tight, and the car's jack didn't fit quite right under the frame. "Do you need my super strength, Dad?" Emma asked, striking a dramatic pose, flexing her tiny skinny arms. Evan grinned. "I might, kiddo. But we're almost there." Claire stepped closer, guilt coloring her expression as she watched Evan struggle. "Is there anything I can do to help?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Sure," Evan said, glancing up. "Hold this flashlight steady for me. Emma, keep an eye on the road, okay?" Together, they worked in quiet coordination, each movement a small, fluid dance of teamwork. Despite the cold air and the occasional passing car, Evan's determination didn't waver. "Almost there," he muttered, finally loosening the last lug nut. Claire watched, her expression softening. "I can't believe you're doing all this," she said, her voice quieter now. "You've saved my day." Evan shrugged as he pulled off the flat tire and began aligning the spare. "Just doing what I'd hoped someone would do for me if I were in your shoes." It was in that simple, kind act that the seeds of something bigger began to take root, though neither Evan nor Claire realized just how much this moment would change both their lives. Evan tightened the last bolt on the spare tire, wiping the sweat from his brow with the sleeve of his jacket. He took a step back, giving the tire a firm shake to ensure it was securely in place. "There you go," he said, standing up straight and brushing off his jeans. "This should hold you over until you can get it properly replaced." Claire let out a long breath, her tense posture easing for the first time since Evan had arrived. "You have no idea how much I appreciate this," she said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. She pulled the flashlight from her hand and handed it back to him, her eyes locking with his for a brief moment. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped." Evan waved off her thanks with a lopsided smile. "It's nothing, really. Just glad I could help." As he turned to walk back to their car, he caught sight of Emma crouching down by the side of the road, examining a shiny rock she had found during their tire change. "You ready, kiddo?" Evan called out, his voice filled with affection as he approached her. "Yeah." Emma beamed up at him, clutching the rock tightly in her small hands. "But Daddy, can we keep it? It's so sparkly." Evan ruffled her hair, trying to keep his voice light despite the complexity of his emotions. "We'll talk about it when we get home, kiddo." With a final wave to Claire, Evan ushered Emma back to the car. As they climbed in, Claire hesitated. Something about Evan, his unassuming kindness, the way he so easily turned down her offer to pay him, had left an unexpected impression on her. She glanced at the business meeting still waiting on her phone, but for a moment, she simply stood there, reflecting on what had just happened. Evan had been in the midst of his own struggles, a single dad doing his best to make ends meet, yet he had never once hesitated to help her, even though it meant he might be late for his own job. That was rare. In a world that often seemed to run on transactions and self-interest, Evan's selfless act stuck with Claire in a way she couldn't ignore. She looked down at the crumpled piece of paper with Evan's phone number written hastily on it. It felt like a symbol of something more, an unspoken bond between two very different lives. She didn't know how or when she would ever need it, but something told her that Evan would not only help her in that moment, but also change the course of his own life with a simple act of kindness. After a few moments, Claire reluctantly started her car and drove off, her mind replaying their interaction. She kept glancing at Evan's number on the scrap of paper, her mind torn between work and something else. She had always been the one to handle things herself, to control every detail of her life. But in that moment, she realized that it was his generosity that had changed her perspective. For the first time in a long while, Claire allowed herself to feel something beyond the relentless pressure of deadlines and meetings. It was a feeling that brought her a sense of clarity. As Claire drove toward her next meeting, the thoughts of Evan stayed with her, causing her to reflect on something she hadn't considered before. Maybe there was more to life than just business deals and chasing success. Maybe, just maybe, there was room for a little bit of kindness, the kind that made the world a little less cold, a little less transactional. Evan, meanwhile, returned to the car with Emma, his mind buzzing in a quiet storm of his own. He had just helped someone, yes, but he couldn't shake the nagging thought that it wasn't the help that mattered. It was the connection. In a brief moment, he had shared something with Claire, a reminder that sometimes people simply needed a hand, not a paycheck. It had been a small gesture, but it felt significant. For a man like Evan, who worked tirelessly to make sure his daughter had what she needed, that moment of pure, unfiltered generosity was a reminder of what it meant to truly show up for another person. As they drove the rest of the way to Emma's school, the morning continued in its usual rhythm. Nothing extraordinary happened. The world didn't stop for them. But deep inside Evan, something had shifted. He couldn't explain it, but he knew it was more than just helping someone with a flat tire. He had acted in a way that felt right. Not for money, not for recognition, but simply because it was the kind thing to do. And that, he realized, was enough. Days passed, and life carried on for both Evan and Claire, each in their own worlds. For Evan, it was the same cycle of work, bills, and parenting. Emma's excitement about her school projects kept him going, even as the weight of his own financial struggles seemed never-ending. But Claire's thoughts lingered on that roadside encounter. There was something about Evan that stuck with her. Maybe it was the simplicity of his actions, or the quiet strength that he carried in the face of hardship. She couldn't put her finger on it, but she had a feeling that Evan's path, and perhaps her own, was about to change in a way neither of them could predict. Then, one evening, Evan's phone buzzed as he sat at the kitchen table with a lukewarm cup of coffee. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, yet somehow it felt familiar, like a memory on the edge of his mind. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello," he said cautiously. "Evan." The voice on the other end was warm, yet tinged with nervous energy. "It's Claire, the woman you helped with the flat tire a few weeks ago." Evan sat up straight, surprised. "Oh, hey Claire. Everything okay? Did the spare hold up?" "It did, thanks to you," Claire replied, her voice steady now. "But that's not why I'm calling." Evan's brow furrowed. "Oh, what's up?" "I've been thinking about that morning," Claire continued. "You barely knew me, yet you stopped everything to help me. Most people wouldn't have, and I've been in a position to help others, to give back in some way, and I want to offer you something." Evan's heart began to race, but he couldn't quite understand why. "Offer me something? What do you mean?" There was a pause, and then Claire spoke again, this time with more purpose. "I run a company, several companies actually, and I've noticed something in you that's hard to find. You're hardworking, reliable, and resourceful, and I think I have an opportunity that could make things a lot easier for you." Evan blinked, uncertain how to respond. "I don't understand. What kind of opportunity?" Claire's voice softened. "Let me explain. I run a property management business, and we're looking for someone to handle maintenance and repairs. It's not glamorous, but it's steady work, and it comes with benefits." Evan was silent for a moment, trying to process her words. This was unexpected, but there was something in Claire's tone, something genuine in her offer, that made him take a deep breath. "Okay, let's talk," Evan finally said. "I'm listening." Little did Evan know, this phone call was the beginning of a new chapter, one where his quiet strength, his kindness, and his willingness to help would change his life in ways he never imagined. 2 weeks had passed since that life-changing phone call. Evan had hardly had a moment to catch his breath. The job offer from Claire had turned into a whirlwind of excitement and uncertainty. He had started working at the property management company, learning the ropes of maintenance and repair. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. It paid the bills, and for the first time in a long while, Evan felt like he was building something solid beneath his feet. He was still getting the hang of things, but each small victory, each door fixed, each faucet that stopped leaking, gave him a sense of accomplishment he hadn't felt in years. And with every paycheck, he could breathe a little easier. Emma had been thrilled when he told her they could finally get the new art supplies she wanted for her school project. That simple joy, that spark in her eyes, made every long shift worth it. But what Evan didn't realize, as he worked tirelessly to prove himself in his new role, was how much his life had already changed in ways he never could have imagined. The opportunity Claire had given him wasn't just about the job. It was about the ripple effect of kindness that began the moment he stopped to help her on the side of the road. You see, Claire didn't just offer Evan a job. She gave him a chance to prove to himself that he was capable of more than just scraping by. She saw in him something that Evan couldn't always see in himself, the potential to break free from the cycle of struggle and truly succeed. But more importantly, she gave him an opportunity to build a future for his daughter, a future where Emma wouldn't have to worry about holes in her sneakers or wondering if their next meal would be affordable. Evan knew that, even though he wasn't in a perfect place, he had made it. He had made it because someone saw him for who he was, a man doing his best, a man with heart, a man who was willing to help when it wasn't easy. It wasn't about the money or the material things. It was about showing up for your family, for your community, for the people who need you. One evening, after another long day at work, Evan sat down with Emma at their little kitchen table. He watched as she carefully put the finishing touches on her school project, a little paper sculpture of a tree with branches stretching up toward the sky. Her eyes sparkled with pride as she glanced up at him. "Daddy," Emma said, a smile tugging at her lips, "I'm going to be the best artist in the whole world one day." Evan chuckled, his heart swelling. "You already are, kiddo. You're going to do amazing things. I just know it." And in that moment, Evan realized something important. It wasn't the big things that mattered the most. It wasn't the job offers, the paychecks, or the things he could provide for Emma. It was the little moments, the moments where they sat together and shared laughter, where they both knew that no matter what, they were in this together. He thought back to that autumn morning when he had helped Claire change her tire, not knowing that it would lead to this, to a new job, to a new opportunity, to a chance at something more. He thought about how, in that small act of kindness, he had unknowingly started a chain reaction. The ripple effect of kindness that Claire had given him had carried through his life in ways that no amount of money or success could replicate. The truth was simple, yet powerful. Kindness doesn't just change the lives of others. It changes our own lives too. When you show up for others, when you give without expecting anything in return, you open yourself up to the possibility of a better future. A future where the world is a little less cold, a little more hopeful, and a little more connected. And so, Evan continued on his journey, knowing that life would always throw challenges his way. But he also knew that, just like on that chilly autumn morning, sometimes all it takes is one moment of kindness to change everything. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stop, to help, and to show someone else that they matter. Because in the end, we're all connected in this world, not by our wealth or status, but by our shared humanity. And when we choose to act with kindness, when we choose to show up for each other, we create a better, brighter future for ourselves and those around us. So, the next time you see someone in need, remember Evan and Claire. Remember that your small act of kindness could be the spark that ignites something incredible in someone else's life. Because when you give, you don't just change their life, you change your own. And that, my friends, is the power of kindness.